Generation Z is bringing its fight against climate change to the polls. While the majority of the young activists are still unable to vote, those that are casting a ballot in this year's election are bringing a sense of urgency to mobilizing social and political movements across the nation. So we want to bring in one of those voters. Jerome Foster II is the executive director of an international youth voting and advocacy organization called 1 Million of Us. Jerome, what made you get involved in the fight to stop climate change?
Yeah, so from a very young age, I feel like myself and my generation has really felt like a sense of urgency because we have not had action seen to stop the climate crisis and to protect our environment. And now turning 18 and our entire generation really uniting around the vote is like really an empowering moment for us at Gen Z. And I think that founding 1 Million of Us has just been a continuation of the activism that we've seen across America, turning into a political revolution at the ballot box really in 2020.
So you're the executive director of 1 Million of Us. Tell us about that. What are the goals and more importantly, I guess, how it was formed?
Yeah, so 1 Million of Us was formed one month into my internship at Congressman John Lewis's office. Me and an intern of mine, we came up with the idea, and I was like, we can call it 1 Million of Us and really unite young people around all the major issues that empower young people, like climate justice, immigration reform, gender and racial equity, and gun violence prevention, and really creating an organization that unites every young person around America to talk for progressive issues that will make sure our generation has a livable future. And from then, we continue to work as on Fridays at Congressman John Lewis's office, and then throughout the rest of the week, we figured out ways to organize and to create cool campaigns for our classmates to get involved.
So as we have pointed out many times as we talk about the issues that certain voting blocs are interested in, no voting bloc is a monolith. But when it comes to young people heading to the polls, what are you hearing from them? What do they want to see from lawmakers when it comes to climate change?
Yeah, I think that especially as young people, we have just grown up in a lot of these systems of oppression, whether that's climate justice and the different moves that we're seeing. What we're seeing now is that young people make up 1 in every 10 eligible voter. And with that, we want to see systemic changes. For so long, we have been unheard. For so long, we haven't been included in the conversation. So right now that we have that ability to impact politics and that we're rising to the political occasion, we want to see real solutions and not just partisan talking points anymore. That's not what young people vote for. We vote for values and we vote for systemic changes.
So I love that you interned at the late Congressman John Lewis's in his office, and he left us with blueprints for how to get into what he called good trouble. Do you see any historical antecedents to the efforts you are making to educate people about climate change, especially to older Americans, older generations that perhaps may not believe that climate change is real or isn't as bad as some people make it? Do you see some of the historical antecedents to what Congressman Lewis accomplished when he was a young man in the 1950s and 60s marching for civil rights and equality?
Yes, as I always say, civil rights are human rights and human rights are environmental rights. And the civil rights movement of that time, young people were sacrificing a lot for the ability to have voting rights. And I think that what that carries on to is for us to continue to advocate for bold policies that uphold clean air and clean water and uphold a livable future, because for so long, like, we have just been reading books and reading documentaries about the fact that our future is going to be unstable. And back in the time of Congressman John Lewis, they weren't even able to have the ability to go to the same water fountains and to be able to go to the same schools. And I think that these systemic issues are carrying on. And I think that a lot of people like to talk about how different generations are doing different things, but I think that our elders have the knowledge and young people have the energy. And when we unite with that knowledge and energy, we create an intersectional movement and an intergenerational movement that's strong and that can really fight for things that continue to progress our generation and for everyone as Americans, whether how old you are.
Well, there are people out there that think, climate change is not happening, or it's happening, it's not a result of anything that humans are doing, or, yeah, it is happening, but let's not let the remedy be worse than the problem. Let's not have millions of jobs disappear, and that will be a whole other problem. So what do you say to maybe some older folks who say, look, I got a mortgage, I pay taxes, And I don't think climate change is as pressing as you do.
I think that they're just misinformed and that they're undereducated. I think that really we just have to understand that when we're talking about jobs, the Green New Deal and other policies like Biden's climate plan enact 10 million jobs over the next 10 years to decarbonize our economy and make sure that we have communities that are safe. And I think that when people like to talk about environmentalism as an elitist issue or as something that isn't relatable to everyday people, I think that when we talk about Kern County, or we talk about Social Chicago, or we talk about the Lower Ninth Ward, or we talk about these communities that are being impacted right now, these are communities that are predominantly of color and predominantly of communities that have been continually left out. And I think that when we talk about these different things, we have to include people that were fossil fuel workers. We have to make sure that pensions are paid. We have to make sure that young people are included in the conversation, that fossil fuel workers are included in the conversation as well. And we can't divide people along these made up lines. It's just the fact that, like, we're seeing climate change is real. 97% of scientists agree that climate change is happening and that we have 10 to 11 years, 7 to 10 years to make sure that we don't reach the tipping points for these natural climate systems. And I think that what we have to do is just unite behind the science. And we have to have unwithering stances of the fact that if we invest in our communities and make sure that we retrofit our buildings, that we have clean water and clean air, that creates jobs, because we have to advance our infrastructure. But if we continue to invest in systems that will continue to degrade our entire community, like if we continue to use fracking, which causes 903 earthquakes in Oklahoma, then how is that beneficial to people? You may have a job, but you don't have clean air and clean water. What clean energy offers is a good job, a good high wage paying job, and also access to clean air and clean water, and make sure that your community is safe. And I think that's really what the conversation needs to be had, is that they try to say that clean energy doesn't have jobs, but it has so many jobs because we're transforming our economy to make sure that it's ready for the 21st and 22nd century.
Jerome Foster II, of 1 million of us, thank you very, very much. We totally appreciate it. Really interesting.
Honor and a pleasure to be here.